But right now, here to tell us all about capturing and harnessing IoT data, I want you to put your hands together from Cisco, Product Manager Engineering, Pete St. Pierre.
Thank you very much, Joe. First off, I want to thank all of you for joining me here today and giving me the opportunity to share with you some thoughts on our IoT edge data strategy. To start off, what I'd really like to do is frame the conversation. What does it mean and why are we processing data at the edge? So what we'll do is we'll talk about the drivers, what digital transformation really means. Digital transformation is going to be the driver that requires us to get the data that we want to harness at the edge. We'll then talk a little bit about the tools and the stuff of what data is from a lifecycle perspective. Right? We talk now about data in a very singular manner, but data has a life cycle and a life of its own, and we'll explore that a little bit. Then finally, I'll share with you specifically what Cisco is doing from a software and hardware perspective to deliver those solutions. Last, what I'll do is I'll wrap up with some use cases. We've got 2 case studies that I'll cover fairly quickly, and you can actually see them here on the show floor, and I would encourage you to do that. And then we'll wrap up with a little summary and some Q&A. Hopefully, this is a think tank session. As I was saying to Joe when we opened up, I'd like to think that I'm just here to share some thoughts and make you think. And if not, then I tanked. So welcome to the think tank, and hopefully it's more thinking. So let's get started. What is digital business transformation? Well, at its fundamental roots, it's really about taking processes that were manual and making them automatic. It's really about taking data to drive business decisions. And how does that happen? Well, that only happens if you can get the data, process it, and put it where people need it. So what do we mean by a life cycle of data? Well, data has to start somewhere. And in an IoT context, data starts at the device. Right? It's great to be able to see the data. But what you're seeing is a device at a particular moment in time. That in itself is not going to transform your business. What happens if we can look at data from end to end? Well, we end up with a siloed application, and we still see a particular device or a particular set of vendor-specific devices. That really still hasn't transformed business because we have such a narrow view. And the result is we end up with islands of IoT. So I have a number of point solutions, but I really haven't changed the way I'm doing business. I haven't realized true value from what I am trying to deploy. So we need another step. We have data at this point, but it's not until we can start to apply some analytics, some intelligence. What does that mean? It could be as simple as applying context to the data. So now I know not just I have a piece of information from a FANUC robot, but I now know where the robot is. I know what machine and process it's involved in. So I can now start to discern more interesting information about my operations. Right? Now I'm starting to get closer to what is digital business transformation. I've taken the data over here, and I've actually made use of it. But have I really made use of it? Have I really transformed my business? I would argue that you haven't until you can take that data and you can put it where it can be used. Digital business transformation isn't about ripping out and replacing processes as much as it is augmenting them. You don't want to change the way your people do business. You want to change the impact they can have. A lot of these applications are on-prem. Many of them are being pushed up into the cloud. But the point is, you need to take the data, transform that into something that is information that is usable, and ultimately turn that into knowledge by putting it in the hands of the people who need to use it. So here, when you look at it, you can see a full life cycle of the data. It's not as simple as just saying, I've instrumented a device, I can get telemetry from it, I can transform my business. So we take this bucket of technologies. We say IoT, the Internet of Things. You know, our industry is so great at acronyms. Just curious here, how many people are on the IT side of the house? Okay, about half. OT side of the house? Okay, quarter, 25% undecided. So whether you're on the OT side of the house or the IT side of the house, you have plenty of acronyms. You probably reuse acronyms without realizing that they don't mean the same thing in different worlds. And that's where part of the impedance mismatch can be in these IoT solutions. But I would argue that as an industry, we got the acronym right, we got the name wrong. IoT is not the Internet of Things. IoT is the integration of things. And what you'll find out is many of the projects that fail in the integration standpoint. It's not until you can get that data through the full life cycle and into applications where you can have business transformation. So let's talk about the integration of things and how data fits into that. Cisco is uniquely positioned. If you think about the data at the edge, the business drivers for needing to harness data at the edge really comes from these three basic principles. Cost. Many vendors want to drive cost out of how they do business. At the end of the day, business transformation is about one of two things. You either lower your cost of doing business or you raise your top line. Pretty simple. Driving cost out by harnessing data and understanding what is happening at the edge and integrating that into business process is one way to achieve that kind of result. Another way you achieve that result is, again, by creating new revenue opportunities, and then that comes down to cost. You're taking that cost and amortizing across many more revenue streams. In effect, what you're doing is you're deriving more value from that data. Next, we look at it as efficiency, and that somewhat ties into cost. Doing your business more efficiently. The more you understand how your operations are happening, you can start to do things like minimize production gaps, so underutilized equipment. You often hear a lot about machine learning and AI for predictive maintenance. Predictive maintenance is an important part of it, but it's really just a stepping stone to many other things. Something as simple as understanding what the full run of a production line looks like and where the bottlenecks are can help you greatly impact the efficiency of overall operations, not just a particular piece of equipment. Again, when we talk about business transformation, we're talking about bigger picture. And the last point is from a regulatory and compliance aspect. Being able to extract and harness data at the edge can be critical for companies, utilities, and pharmaceuticals are two good examples, where you really need to understand what happens at every point in the manufacturing process. So these three drivers are really what is forcing us to need to instrument at the edge, collect data, and process it. The problem with this, and again it comes back to IoT being the integration of things, is that you have all of these complex puzzle pieces that have to come together. You have to do instrumentation at the edge. It requires hardware platforms. You have to incorporate some kind of a secure operating environment for applications. You need a data platform. You need to have security through all of that. You want manageability. So all of this has to come together, which is extremely complex. What Cisco has done, again, I feel we're very uniquely positioned to do this. We start with our industrial hardware portfolio. So we have a whole set of industrial routers, edge switches, and compute units. We can put these out at the edge in very, very rough environments and connect equipment. And we do it securely with remote manageability. What you end up having is a highly scalable hardware platform for deploying your edge data collection and analytics. For those of you that are Cisco customers, probably most of you, you understand we have iOS on top of that and IOX. So we have a secure operating environment and we have a secure applications environment. Again, that can be remotely administered. Right? So now what we're looking at is hardware and software, base software bundled, that allows you remote administration to a secure application deployment platform. Right? We've got 2/3 of the integration problem solved right there, single vendor. On top of that, we layer our edge data stack, most commonly known as Cisco Kinetic, which is the big product family involving a lot of our IoT products. Specifically, I'll focus on the Kinetic EFM module, or what we refer to as Kinetic Advantage. The EFM module gives you an extensible module to actually do your pluggable connectivity, to be able to pull data in from various sources, then apply some kind of data policy for data governance or data processing, and forwarding that out to the edge. So you'll notice what we're talking about is the full life cycle of data, from data ingestion to processing to egress into the applications that you use today. The platform provides tools in order to look at instantaneous points of data, allowing you to build some basic analytics and direct the routing of the results. But it's not necessarily intended to be the end-all and be-all for managing that solution, because otherwise you could be in the same point of building all of these point solutions to look at different applications. The real value of an edge data platform is the ability to ingest data from a wide variety of sources, again coming back to that integration piece of IoT, being able to apply policy and governance along with some basic transformation, and putting it in the places that you need. What we've ended up with is a flexible hierarchy. So you can build an n-tiered system where you have Cisco hardware at the edge, ingesting and doing processing on the data. A lot of the processing here is basic normalization, taking noise out of the system. Those of you familiar with industrial control protocols, you're probably very familiar with the fact that they can be very chatty, produce a lot of messages with very little information, very little context. So being able to very quickly after ingestion pull that together and actually give it context and meaning gets you quickly into that information stage of the data lifecycle. Right? It's also designed, again, to be distributed, realizing that the further up the stack you can push it, the more context you can give it, and the closer you can get to being in a place where the information is usable by the end user. And the last piece is this intuitive graphical policy editor where you can actually dynamically build a view of what your data looks like and how you want to transform it and route it. So again, hearkening back to that life cycle, at the lowest level, we have the raw technical data. You can pull all of that in, and the framework we have, we provide some base connectors that are Cisco supported. The architecture this is built on, DSA, Distributed Services Architecture, is an open standard, and there are open source communities that have a wide range of links. There are literally over 100 different industrial protocols that are implemented through open source projects. We try to incorporate as many of those, over time into the base product. But the point is, from a getting started perspective, you have a wide range of systems that you can integrate with. Again, we move up the stack, and through this DSA broker architecture, we get to a point where we can start to apply a lot of those technologies that give you the data cleaning. Oops. And finally, Cisco is not a cloud analytics company, but we want you to be able to apply the analytics that you do today and that you want to move forward to. So we give you the flexibility to route that process data out to the sources and the places where you need it. Again, it's about reinventing business. It's not about changing the way the people work, because we all know that's extremely difficult. But a key takeaway here, which I hope most of you will appreciate, since it sounds like a lot of the crowd is on the IT side, what we're giving you is a point of control for policy. so that as the IT world wants to expand, it's got to transverse the IT networks. And we all know that that makes people uncomfortable, right? Cisco is a single vendor providing you this full stack solution, gives you that full secure stack and control point for the egress processing and ultimate egress of data. So looking at some of the case studies and the applications that we've done with this platform, the first one I'll share with you is a small pharmaceutical company in Germany called Bayer. Anybody taking an aspirin? Yeah, small company. So we worked with Bayer on a number of their pain points. Oh. You know, somebody gave me a different set of slides. So thankfully they were all in the right order though. So this is basically talking about what we did with them. They had a situation where they had some tools, SaaS and an AWS application that they were using for predictive maintenance and some of their prescriptive maintenance. And what we were able to do was give them a secure platform for connecting their production equipment, doing some data normalization at the edge and filtering the noise and being able to funnel that back into the applications they were already using. And the net result of that was they were able to increase their insight into their operations of their system. As I was saying earlier as a use case, understanding where the pain points were in their production lines, where their utilization was, and giving their predictive analytics engine faster access to the data in a normalized format. Right? So we accomplished all three pieces of that data lifecycle, from ingesting the data that they needed with the specific industry protocols, pulling that up and doing the normalization, and making it available to them in the applications they were using today. The other example I'll share with you, and this is absolutely one of my favorites, the genesis of this, and this goes back, some of you may remember, back in 1990 in Tennessee, there was a particular afternoon, early evening, a lot of fog rolling in. All it took was one big rig to stop not fast enough and have an accident. The result was a 90-car pileup and many deaths. I think the number was 42 deaths. That's just an astronomical number, and that's one case. Things like this happen, not to that degree, obviously, but all over the country. So Cisco has worked with a variety of DOTs in the United States, and you can see a demonstration over in the Connected Cities, Connected Communities area. We actually, you've probably seen the big road sign already. We were actually able to go out and instrument sections of roadway where we can bring in information about the weather, we can bring in information about the road conditions, and we can bring in information about the public works trucks that are out on the highways. We can link in communication with street signs. So now imagine, fast forward 30 years, the fog starts rolling in, the ground starts getting a little slick, and instead of having to dispatch somebody to go out and change a sign or close a physical on-ramp, where you can actually activate that in real time. You've just increased the safety of the US highways, I couldn't even say how many fold, right? And you haven't had to endanger an individual by putting them out on the road to go take an action like closing that gate. So again, we were able to deliver to a number of the DOTs in the United States the secure connectivity to make this possible. Because again, Cisco's industrial portfolio spans not just their traditional LAN and WAN switching, but also LTE components, right? So you've got connectivity literally to anywhere. You've got the secure remote manageability, which was a key piece. When you're deploying this on miles of highway, you know, it's hard enough to manage something when it's in your data center, or you think about the large service provider infrastructures we're used to. Now, put a radio every mile marker out along a highway and send somebody to go do firmware upgrades. Not going to happen, right? So part of that secure remote manageability is fundamental to Cisco providing the integrated stack. So just to kind of wrap things up, and then we'll get to some questions. What I wanted to really share with you today is Cisco's commitment to delivering this integration of things that IoT has become, starting with that secure hardware platform. At the data layer, that's the part that ultimately, we'll use the transportation metaphor where the rubber meets the road. You have to be able to accomplish the data services. That is the critical part of IoT from a business transformation perspective, right? That means being able to do your data ingestion, some type of normalization and processing, ultimately being able to apply, again, I hope very relevant to this crowd, the data governance piece, and then ultimately egress into the systems that you already use today, right? And well, they didn't give me my last slide. Yeah, I had a nice little slide that shows you, we'll back up here. Today what you're faced with is doing your own integration. You have to go out and get your own hardware platform. You put a hardened version of Red Hat on it. You probably use something like Docker, which IOX will be supporting in the next few releases. You have to build an application platform on top, and then somehow you have to unify the manageability and security of all of that. The benefit of the Cisco solution is you can actually drive the same business result with an integrated package from a single vendor. Or as I like to say, the old one throat to choke. So with that, I want to thank you very much for taking time. I hope you're having a great show. It's been a pleasure here to speak with you, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Yeah, got the microphone here to make sure we can hear your question. Anybody got any questions? Well, let me ask you, are you willing to hang out a bit if these shy people want to actually ask you a one-on-one? Are you able to hang out here a little bit?
I would love to, because I'm certainly feeling like less thinking, more tank. So
right?
Tell me you were thinking and come on up and have a chat.
Yeah. What do you think you've done? You think you've changed the vernacular? They'll no longer say Internet of Things. They'll say integration of things?
It starts one person at a time.
One person at a time.
Right.
All right. Let's hear it for Pete. Give him a round of applause. Nicely done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
and
Pete.
I would ask you if you have a chance to fill out the survey. My understanding is if you want to see more of this content, if you rate the session high, we'll get it out into the other Cisco Lives. And if you have any comments on how we can improve it, I would certainly love the feedback. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and also all of our presentations are going to be available on the website and within a couple of weeks. And they actually a nice split screen of speaker and your content. So you can look for that too. All right, thanks so much. Thanks you guys for stopping by. Come on back, see us here at Think Tank 1.